The Billionaire's Betrayal, Complete Story. Welcome to Heart's Reckoning. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories. Part 1, The Shattered Dream. The Perfect Morning. Maya Chin stood in her tiny studio apartment, sunlight streaming through the single window as she carefully wrapped the painting she'd stayed up all night finishing. The canvas showed two hands intertwined, reaching toward a golden sunrise. It was a gift for Alexander, her fiancé, to celebrate their upcoming engagement party. At 26 years old, Maya worked as an art teacher at Lincoln Elementary School during the day and painted in her spare time. Money was always tight, but she didn't mind. Love was supposed to conquer all, wasn't it? That's what Alexander always told her when she worried about their different worlds. Alexander Sterling was everything Maya wasn't. Wealthy, connected, born into privilege. His family owned Sterling Real Estate, one of the biggest property development companies in the city. When he'd walked into her small art show 2 years ago and bought every single one of her paintings, she'd thought it was a dream. "You're talented," he'd said, his blue eyes twinkling with charm. "And beautiful. Have dinner with me." That dinner had led to another, then another. Within 6 months, he proposed with a diamond ring that cost more than Maya made in a year. She'd cried happy tears, unable to believe someone like Alexander could love someone like her. The surprise visit. Today, Maya wanted to surprise him. She'd baked his favorite cookies, wrapped the painting, and decided to visit his office early. They were supposed to meet at 6 for dinner, but she couldn't wait to see his face when he saw her gift. Sterling Real Estate occupied the 20th floor of the Morrison Tower downtown. Maya had only been there a handful of times. Alexander preferred to keep his work life separate, he said. It was less complicated that way. The receptionist wasn't at her desk when Maya arrived. She could hear voices coming from Alexander's corner office. The door was slightly open. Maya smiled, about to knock, when she heard Alexander's voice say her name. She froze. "Maya doesn't suspect anything?" A woman's voice asked. Cold, elegant, and unfamiliar. "Of course not, Mother." Alexander laughed. "She's too naive. Too trusting. It's almost too easy." Maya's hand stopped inches from the door. Her heart began to pound. "And you're certain about the trust fund amount?" the woman continued. 50 million is worth this charade? Elena Valdez's will is ironclad, Alexander replied. Maya must be married by her 27th birthday, which is in 3 months. Once we're married, I'll have access to the account as her husband. We wait 6 months, maybe a year to avoid suspicion, then divorce. I keep half in the settlement. Maya felt the world tilt. Her grandmother. Her sweet grandmother Elena, who'd raised her after her parents died, who'd passed away 2 years ago. The lawyer had mentioned a trust fund, but Maya had been too grief-stricken to pay attention to details. What about Victoria? Alexander's mother asked. She won't be happy about this delay. Victoria understands its business, Alexander said dismissively. She's been my real fiancé for 3 years. She knows this marriage to Maya is temporary. Just long enough to secure the money. The documents of betrayal. Maya's legs felt like water. She wanted to run, to scream, to burst through that door and confront them. But something stopped her. Some survival instinct she didn't know she possessed. She backed away from the door silently, her mind racing. 3 years. Alexander had been with someone named Victoria for 3 years. Their entire relationship had been a lie. She was nothing but a bank account to him. Maya found herself in the empty conference room across the hall. She needed to think. Needed to breathe. Needed to figure out what to do. That's when she saw them. Documents spread across the conference table. Someone must have been reviewing files and left them out. Maya's eyes caught her own name on one of the papers. Her hand shook as she picked it up. It was a contract. A prenuptial agreement already drawn up, heavily favoring Alexander in case of divorce. Another document detailed her grandmother's trust fund, exactly as Alexander had described. $50 million, accessible only if Maya married before turning 27. There were other papers too. Financial projections showing how Alexander planned to invest Maya's assets. Personal investigation reports about her, detailing her daily routine, her friends, her weaknesses. They'd been studying her like a science project. At the bottom of the pile was a photograph. Alexander and a stunning blonde woman, their arms around each other, kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower. The date stamp showed it was from 3 months ago, when Alexander had told Maya he was in Paris on business. When he'd called her every night saying he missed her. Victoria Ashford. The name was written on the back of the photo in elegant handwriting. Forever yours, V. The calculated plan. Maya pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and photographed every single document. Every page, every contract, every investigation report. Evidence. She needed evidence. She could hear Alexander still talking in his office. Laughing about something. The sound made her stomach turn. When she finished, Maya carefully arranged the documents exactly as she'd found them. Then she walked out of Sterling Real Estate with her head held high, the painting and cookies still clutched in her hands. She didn't cry until she got home. Then she collapsed on her worn couch and sobbed until her body ached and her eyes were swollen. How could she have been so stupid? So blind? But as the sun set and darkness filled her apartment, something shifted inside Maya. The grief began to harden into something else. Something cold and determined. She dried her eyes and opened her laptop. The card from her grandmother's lawyer, Marcus Webb, was still in her desk drawer. She'd ignored his calls for 2 years, too overwhelmed to deal with Elena's estate. She dialed his number. Mr. Webb? This is Maya Chen. Elena Valdez's granddaughter. I think it's time we talked about my inheritance. The engagement party revelation. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in the ballroom of the Sterling family mansion, wearing a silver dress Alexander had bought her. She looked beautiful, composed, perfect. Inside, her heart was ice. The engagement party was everything Alexander had promised. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, a string quartet playing classical music. Everyone who was anyone in the city's high society had come. Including, Maya noticed, the beautiful blonde from the photograph. Victoria Ashford stood near the bar, watching Alexander with possessive eyes. Maya had played her part perfectly for 2 weeks. The loving fiancé, excited about the wedding, grateful for Alexander's generosity. She'd let him kiss her, hold her, whisper sweet lies in her ear. And she'd planned. Mr. Webb had been shocked by her story but quick to help. Together, they'd arranged everything. The trust fund was indeed real. $50 million that Maya could access once she married. Elena had wanted to ensure her granddaughter was settled and loved before receiving such wealth. The irony wasn't lost on Maya. Ladies and gentlemen. Alexander's voice rang out as he tapped a champagne glass. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate my engagement to the lovely Maya Chen. Applause rippled through the crowd. Maya smiled, her face a perfect mask. Maya is the most genuine, kind-hearted woman I've ever met, Alexander continued, his hand on her waist. I'm the luckiest man alive. That's interesting, Maya said, her voice cutting through the applause. She stepped away from him, walking to the center of the room. Because I heard something very different 2 weeks ago. Alexander's smile faltered. Darling, what are you talking about? Maya pulled out her phone and connected it to the room's projection system. She'd practiced this moment 100 times. I'm talking about the conversation you had with your mother in your office, Maya said calmly as her phone screen appeared on the wall. The one where you discussed marrying me for my grandmother's trust fund. The room went silent. Maya, I don't know what you think you heard, but, Alexander started, his face paling. I have recordings, Maya interrupted. She pressed play. Alexander's voice filled the room. Maya doesn't suspect anything? Of course not, Mother. She's too naive. Too trusting. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Maya watched Alexander's face turn from pale to red. She switched to the next image. The prenuptial agreement. I also have documents showing your plan to divorce me after accessing my inheritance. She clicked again. And photographs of your real fiancée, Victoria Ashford, who you've been dating for 3 years. Victoria's face appeared on the screen, kissing Alexander in Paris. Someone in the crowd pointed at the real Victoria, who looked like she wanted to disappear. This entire relationship was a scam, Maya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Alexander Sterling planned to marry me, steal my inheritance, and divorce me. All while maintaining his relationship with another woman. The room erupted in shocked conversation. Alexander's mother pushed through the crowd, her face furious. This is slander. Our lawyers will. Your lawyers will find that everything I've said is documented and true, Maya interrupted. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger and set it on the nearest table. Consider our engagement terminated, Alexander. You wanted my money? You'll never see a single dollar. She turned to face the crowd of wealthy, powerful people. I'm sorry you all came here tonight expecting a celebration. Instead, you've witnessed the truth about the Sterling family's character. I hope you'll remember this when you do business with them in the future. The disappearing act. Maya walked out of the ballroom with her head high, even though her legs were shaking. Behind her, she could hear chaos erupting. Alexander shouting her name, his mother demanding she come back, Victoria crying. She didn't look back. A car was waiting outside, arranged by Mr. Webb. Maya climbed in and gave the driver an address. Not her apartment. Alexander would look for her there. Where are we going, Miss Chen? The driver asked. Maya looked at her reflection in the window. She barely recognized herself. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a naive art teacher who believed in fairy tale love. Tonight, she'd exposed a con man in front of everyone who mattered in his world. But this was just the beginning. To meet with Marcus Webb, Maya said. We have a lot of work to do. As the car pulled away from the Sterling mansion, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Alexander thought he was going to steal her inheritance? He had no idea what was coming. The naive, trusting Maya Chen he'd manipulated was gone. In her place was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who was about to show him exactly what it felt like to lose everything. The real game was just beginning. And this time, Maya was going to win. Part 2, The Phoenix Rising. The Hidden Legacy. The law office of Webb and Associates was quiet at 9 in the evening. Maya sat across from Marcus Webb, a silver-haired man in his 60s who'd been her grandmother's lawyer for 30 years. On the desk between them was a leather folder she'd never seen before. Your grandmother was an extraordinary woman, Marcus began, opening the folder. But there's much about Elena Valdez you don't know. Maya leaned forward. What do you mean? Marcus pulled out a photograph. A young woman in a Parisian gallery, surrounded by paintings. She was stunning, confident, and unmistakably Maya's grandmother. Before she came to America and became the quiet grandmother you knew, Elena Valdez was one of the most influential art collectors and dealers in Europe. She worked with Picasso, Dali, and Kahlo. She had galleries in Paris, London, Barcelona, and Rome. Maya stared at the photograph. This glamorous woman was her grandmother? The gentle lady who'd made her soup and taught her to paint? When your mother died, Elena chose to step away from that world to raise you, Marcus continued. She wanted you to have a normal childhood, away from the pressure and politics of high society. But she never sold her empire. She just waited. He pulled out more documents. Property deeds, gallery ownership papers, investment portfolios. The trust fund Alexander was after? That's only a fraction of your real inheritance. Elena left you everything, Maya. Not just $50 million, but an entire art empire worth over $300 million. The room seemed to spin. $300 million? There are galleries in 5 countries, all still operational but managed by trustees. There are properties in major cities around the world. There are connections to every important figure in the art world. There are collections of paintings that museums would kill to own. Marcus looked at her seriously. Elena left detailed instructions. She wanted you to have the choice she never did. To live a simple life as an artist, or to step into her shoes and reclaim the Valdez name. Maya thought about Alexander. About Victoria. About everyone at that party who'd looked at her like she was nothing. A poor art teacher who'd gotten lucky catching a rich man's attention. I want to reclaim it, Maya said firmly. I want everything my grandmother built. Marcus smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. But Maya, this world your grandmother came from? It's not easy. It's ruthless, competitive, and unforgiving. To succeed, you'll need to transform yourself completely. Then that's what I'll do, Maya said. Alexander wanted to use me? Fine. I'm going to show him what it means to underestimate someone. 6 months of transformation. Maya disappeared from her old life completely. She quit her teaching job, left her apartment, and moved into one of her grandmother's properties. A beautiful townhouse in the historic district that had been maintained but empty for years. Marcus introduced her to a team of experts. Business consultants who taught her about investments and negotiations. Art dealers who educated her on authentication and valuation. Image consultants who transformed her appearance from sweet and approachable to sophisticated and powerful. Maya studied 12 hours a day. She learned to speak confidently about art history, not as a teacher but as an expert. She learned to navigate high society gatherings, to recognize the subtle power dynamics in every conversation. She learned about her grandmother's network and began reaching out, reintroducing the Valdez name. She changed her appearance gradually. She let her dark hair grow longer, styled it in elegant ways instead of the simple ponytail she'd always worn. She learned to apply makeup that enhanced rather than hid. She bought clothes that made her feel powerful. Designer pieces from her grandmother's collection and new acquisitions that fit her emerging style. But the biggest change was internal. Maya learned to trust her instincts again. To see through charm and recognize manipulation. To value herself not for who loved her, but for who she was. She also hired investigators. She wanted to know everything about Alexander Sterling. His business dealings, his debts, his secrets. And she found plenty. Sterling Real Estate was in trouble. Alexander had been making risky investments, borrowing heavily against future profits that weren't materializing. His engagement to Victoria Ashford wasn't just personal. Her father owned Ashford Construction, a company Sterling Real Estate desperately needed as a partner. Maya smiled when she read the reports. Alexander was more desperate than she'd realized. Losing her trust fund had probably damaged his financial plans significantly. Good. The Grand Gala. 6 months after the disastrous engagement party, invitations went out across the city for an exclusive art gala. The event was hosted by someone mysterious. Simply signed the Valdez collection. Everyone who mattered in art and high society received an invitation. Including Alexander Sterling and Victoria Ashford. The gala was held in one of Maya's grandmother's galleries, a stunning space with marble floors and soaring ceilings. Maya had spent weeks preparing the exhibition. Pieces from her grandmother's private collection that hadn't been seen publicly in decades. Works by masters that made even experienced collectors gasp. Maya stood in the center of the gallery, wearing a deep red gown that hugged her curves and made her feel invincible. Her hair was swept up elegantly. Diamond earrings that had belonged to her grandmother sparkled at her ears. She looked like she'd been born to this world. Guests arrived in waves, all curious about the mysterious Valdez collection. Maya greeted them with confidence, discussing each piece knowledgeably, making connections, reminding the art world that the Valdez name meant something. She saw Alexander the moment he entered. He looked good, as always. Expensive suit, perfect hair, that charming smile. Victoria was on his arm, wearing a designer dress and a strained expression. Alexander didn't recognize Maya at first. His eyes swept past her, then snapped back, widening in shock. "Maya," he said, his voice uncertain. She turned to him with a cool smile. "Hello, Alexander. It's good to see you again." What is this?" He looked around the gallery, confusion clear on his face. "What are you doing here?" "Hosting," Maya said simply. "This is my gallery. My collection. My event." "Your gallery?" Victoria repeated, her voice sharp. "You're a schoolteacher." Maya corrected. "I was a schoolteacher. Now I'm the sole heir to the Valdez art empire. Perhaps you've heard of it?" She watched the realization dawn on their faces. Alexander's mouth opened and closed. Victoria looked like she might be sick. "My grandmother was Elena Valdez," Maya continued casually, as if discussing the weather. "One of the most successful art dealers of the 20th century. The trust fund you were so eager to access, Alexander? That was pocket change compared to my real inheritance. The first strike." Alexander recovered quickly, his charm snapping back into place. "Maya, I can explain about everything that happened. I made mistakes, I know, but—" "Save it," Maya interrupted. "I'm not interested in explanations. I'm interested in business." She gestured to the gallery. "Every person here tonight represents connections, influence, and power in the art world. They're here because the Valdez name means something. It means quality, authenticity, and trustworthiness." She looked directly at Alexander. "Your family name used to mean something too. Sterling real estate was once respected. But lately, I've been hearing troubling stories. Risky investments, financial instability, projects going over budget." Alexander's face hardened. "My company's finances are none of your concern." "Actually, they are," Maya said sweetly. "You see, I've been making some investments of my own. Including a substantial stake in Morrison Development Group." She watched his face pale. Morrison Development was Sterling Real Estate's biggest competitor. "I've also been talking to some of your clients," Maya continued. "Sharing information about alternative developers who might be more financially stable. More trustworthy." "You can't do that," Victoria hissed. "It's business?" Maya finished. "That's what you told yourself when you helped Alexander plan to scam me, wasn't it? That it was just business?" A crowd had gathered around them, sensing drama. Maya didn't care. She wanted witnesses. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya said calmly. "Sterling Real Estate is going to face some challenges in the coming months. Nothing illegal, nothing you can sue me over. Just good old-fashioned competition. I'm going to support your rivals, invest in their success, and watch your company struggle." "Why?" Alexander demanded, his charm completely gone now. "Because I hurt your feelings?" "No," Maya said. "Because you tried to steal from me. You manipulated me, lied to me, and planned to use me like I was nothing. You thought I was weak and stupid. Now I'm going to show you exactly how wrong you were." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Alexander? The documents I showed at your engagement party? I've shared those with several media outlets. Your reputation as a con artist is becoming quite well known. I hope that doesn't affect your business too much." Maya walked away, leaving Alexander standing in the center of her gallery, surrounded by people who'd just heard everything. She could feel his eyes burning into her back, full of rage and fear. It felt amazing. The unexpected alliance. Maya was examining a Monet when someone approached. She turned to find a man she didn't recognize. Tall, dark-haired, with sharp green eyes and an expensive suit. He looked like he belonged in this world, but there was something different about him. Less arrogant than most of the wealthy men she'd met. "That was quite a performance," he said, his voice deep and warm. "I don't know what you mean," Maya replied coolly. "The confrontation with Sterling." He smiled slightly. "Very effective. Public humiliation mixed with business threats. Well played. And you are?" "Damien Cross." He offered his hand. "I own Cross Technologies. We develop software for real estate companies, among other things." Maya shook his hand, recognizing the name. Cross Technologies was one of the most successful tech companies in the country. "What do you want, Mr. Cross?" "To propose a partnership." He pulled out his phone, showing her a document. "I've been investigating Sterling Real Estate for my own reasons. They owe my company a considerable amount of money for software licenses they've been using without paying for. I also have evidence of other financial irregularities." He looked at her seriously. "I heard what he tried to do to you. I've seen men like Alexander Sterling before. Charming on the outside, corrupt on the inside. They hurt people and face no consequences because they're rich and connected." "You want to help me take him down?" Maya asked skeptically. "I want to take him down," Damien corrected. "Whether you're involved or not. But it would be more effective if we worked together. You have social connections and inside information. I have technical evidence and business leverage." Maya studied him. "What's in it for you?" "Justice," he said simply. "And profit. Sterling owes me money. I want it back, plus damages." "You want revenge." "We both get what we want." There was something in his eyes. Something honest that she hadn't expected. Maya had learned to be suspicious of everyone, especially charming men offering help. But Damien Cross didn't feel like Alexander. He felt different. "All right," she said finally. "Let's talk details." "But Mr. Cross? If you try to betray me like Alexander did, I'll destroy you too." He smiled. "Fair enough. And please, call me Damien." As they walked to a quieter corner of the gallery to discuss their plans, Maya felt something unexpected. A flutter of attraction she quickly pushed down. She'd learned her lesson about trusting charming men. But as Damien explained his evidence against Sterling, showing her financial records and legal documents, Maya couldn't help thinking that maybe, just maybe, not everyone was like Alexander. Maybe some people could actually be trusted. She'd find out soon enough. Because working with Damien Cross meant spending time with him. Getting to know him. And Maya wasn't sure she was ready for that. But revenge required taking risks. And if Damien could help her destroy Alexander completely? Then it was a risk worth taking. The war against Alexander Sterling had officially begun. And this time, Maya had an ally. Part 3, The Final Reckoning, 2,000 words. The partnership deepens. 3 months into their alliance, Maya and Damien had established a routine. They met twice a week in his office at Cross Technologies, reviewing evidence against Sterling Real Estate and coordinating their attacks on his business. But something had shifted between them. What started as a business partnership was becoming something more personal. Damien made her laugh with dry observations about high society. He listened when she talked about her grandmother, about art, about her dreams of opening galleries for struggling artists. He never pushed, never demanded, never made her feel like she owed him anything. It terrified her. "You're thinking too hard again," Damien said, breaking into her thoughts. They were in his office, late evening, going over financial reports on Sterling's latest failed project. "I'm thinking the appropriate amount," Maya countered, sipping the coffee he'd made her. Damien made excellent coffee, she'd learned. One of many unexpected things about him. "Alexander's company is bleeding money," Damien said, pointing to the reports. "He's laid off 30% of his staff in the last 2 months. Victoria's father pulled out of their construction partnership after the scandal. Good, Maya said, but the satisfaction felt hollow somehow. Damien looked at her carefully. Are you having second thoughts? No, she said quickly. Then, more honestly, maybe. I don't know. Revenge felt so clear 6 months ago. Now it's complicated. Because you're not the same person you were 6 months ago, Damien said gently. You've built something real, Maya. The galleries you've opened, the artists you're supporting, the Valdez name you've restored. That matters more than watching Alexander suffer. Maya met his eyes. When did you become so wise? I've always been this wise. You just didn't notice because you were too busy plotting revenge. He smiled, but it faded quickly. Maya, can I ask you something? Of course. When Alexander betrayed you, you transformed into this powerful businesswoman practically overnight. You took control, fought back, and never showed weakness. He paused. But who took care of you? Who let you just be sad? The question hit her harder than expected. Maya felt her throat tighten. I didn't have time to be sad. I had work to do. That's not healthy. Neither is what Alexander did to me, she snapped, then immediately regretted it. Sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Damien moved closer, his hand covering hers on the desk. I just want to make sure you're okay. That you're doing this for the right reasons, not because you're still hurting. I am still hurting, Maya admitted quietly. Every day. He made me believe I was loved. He made me believe I mattered. Then I found out it was all lies. That kind of betrayal doesn't just go away. No, Damien agreed. But it also doesn't have to define you forever. Maya looked at their hands, his warm and steady over hers. Why are you really helping me, Damien? The truth. He was quiet for a moment. Because 5 years ago, a woman I cared about was scammed by someone like Alexander. She lost everything. Her savings, her home, her confidence. And I didn't know until it was too late to help her. His jaw tightened. She took her own life 6 months later. Oh God, Maya whispered. Damien, I'm so sorry. I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to stop someone like that, I would. Then I heard about what Alexander tried to do to you, and I saw my chance. He looked at her intently. But somewhere along the way, this stopped being about avenging someone from my past. It became about protecting someone in my present. Maya's heart raced. Damien. I care about you, Maya. He said it simply, no games, no manipulation. I understand if you're not ready for that. I understand if you can't trust anyone right now. But I needed you to know. Before Maya could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it, and his expression changed. It's my investigator. This might be important. He answered, listening intently. Maya watched his face grow serious. Are you certain? Damien asked. All right. Send me everything you have. Yes, tonight. He hung up and looked at Maya. Sterling Real Estate is officially in bankruptcy proceedings. Alexander filed this afternoon. The downfall accelerates. The news of Alexander's bankruptcy spread through the city like wildfire. Maya watched from her townhouse as news outlets reported on the collapse of the once mighty Sterling Real Estate. 20-year-old company, gone in less than a year. She should have felt triumphant. This was what she'd wanted, wasn't it? Alexander losing everything, just like he'd planned to make her lose everything. Instead, she felt empty. He's asking to see you, Marcus Webb told her over the phone that evening. Alexander. He called my office, begging for a meeting. No, Maya said immediately. He says he has information you need to hear. About Victoria and his mother. Marcus paused. He sounds desperate, Maya. Broken. Maya closed her eyes. Part of her wanted to refuse, to let him suffer without closure. But another part, the part that Damien had awakened, wanted to face him one final time. To see if there was anything real beneath all the lies. "Fine," she said. "Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Your office. You and Damien present. I'll arrange it." The next day, Maya dressed carefully in a tailored navy suit. Armor for battle. Damien picked her up, sensing she needed support. "You don't have to do this," he reminded her as they drove to Marcus's office. "Yes, I do," Maya said. "I need to look him in the eye one more time. To make sure I'm doing this for justice, not just revenge." Alexander was already waiting when they arrived.